I didn't mean to stay that late. The coffee shop was almost empty, chairs stacked on tables, the hum of the espresso machine the only sound left. She sat across from me, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup like she was thinking about something too big to say out loud. Linda. She'd always been Linda to me, never Ms. Flores, never ma'am, never anything formal. Just Linda. The kind of name you say softly because it feels wrong to say it any other way. Her hair fell loose tonight, not the neat bun I'd seen 100 times before. There was something careless about it, as if she'd given up trying to control how she looked, and somehow, that made her impossible to look away from. You should go, she said finally, not looking at me. It's late. I should have listened. I should have stood up, thanked her for the coffee, and walked out into the cool night. But my legs stayed still. My hands wrapped tighter around the mug, like it was an anchor. You've been saying that for the last hour, I murmured. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the briefest second, I swore she almost smiled. But it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by that guarded expression she wore when she wanted distance. You're 21, she said, as if that number was a wall I couldn't climb. You don't know what you want yet. I leaned in slightly, enough to catch the faint scent of her perfume, warm, clean, and familiar in a way that made my chest ache. I know I want to stay right here. That made her laugh. A short, quiet laugh, but I felt it more than I heard it. She shook her head, eyes drifting toward the window where rain had started to fall in soft sheets. You'll regret touching me, she said then, voice so low I almost thought I'd imagined it. I don't know if it was the challenge in her tone, or the way her hand rested near mine like it was daring me to close the gap. But my mouth moved before my mind could catch up. Only if you stop, I said. Her breath caught, barely, but enough. I watched her fingers twitch, like she was deciding whether to pull away or give in. And that's when I saw it. The thing she'd been hiding behind sharp words and that steady, unshakable voice. She was afraid. Not of me, but of what it would mean if she let me in. The air between us thickened, heavy with something neither of us wanted to name. I could hear the rain harder now, each drop against the glass marking the seconds we didn't move. Her gaze stayed locked on mine, and I swear the room felt smaller. Go home, David, she whispered. But her hand didn't move. And mine, well, I let my fingers slide just close enough to brush hers. A spark, not the kind for movies, not something exaggerated, just a quiet, undeniable heat that said we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. And then, the doorbell at the front of the shop rang. We both turned, but for one sharp heartbeat, neither of us looked away from the other. The chime of the shop's door broke the silence, but neither of us moved right away. It was just the delivery guy, dropping off a box and disappearing into the rain again. But in those few seconds, my pulse had already slowed, the heat of that small touch still lingering in my fingertips. Linda stood first, sliding her chair back with a soft scrape. I should lock up, she said, almost to herself. I watched her move, the way she checked the bolts, the soft sway of her shoulders. It was strange how even ordinary movements felt heavy with meaning now. I heard about you, I said finally. She paused mid-turn, eyes narrowing slightly. From who? Your sister, I admitted. She mentioned, your divorce. Linda didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened. People like to talk when it's not their life on the line. I should have stopped. But I'd seen that look in her before, in brief moments when she thought no one was watching. Loneliness, carefully hidden beneath sharp edges. What happened? I asked quietly. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. 15 years. I thought it was enough to make him stay. Turns out, people leave whether you deserve it or not. Something inside me twisted. Maybe because I knew what it was like to feel disposable. He was an idiot. That's sweet, she said, though her tone was flat. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm 46, divorced, and, her voice trailed off. And you're, she waved vaguely at me. Young. With your whole life ahead of you. And here I am, running a coffee shop and pretending I don't notice when you look at me like what? Her eyes met mine then, sharp and unblinking. Like you want something you'll regret. I stepped closer before I could think better of it. Maybe I already regret not doing something about it. Her breath caught, again. That little tell of hers. She turned away, but not before I caught the faintest flicker of a smile tugging at her mouth. Your trouble, she murmured. So I've been told. We didn't speak for a while after that. She busied herself wiping down counters that didn't need it. I lingered, watching the rain smear city lights across the window. Somewhere in the quiet, she said, my son's your age, you know. That hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just an age gap, it was that. Her son. A line drawn in permanent ink. I almost said something to change the subject, but instead, I found myself asking, would you tell him? Her answer was immediate. No, silence again. Only this time, it wasn't heavy. It was charged. When she finally walked past me toward the back, her hand brushed my arm, deliberately, I think. Just enough for my skin to remember it long after she was gone. The rain had eased into a soft drizzle by the time I stepped outside. I should have walked home. Instead, I found myself lingering by the awning, watching Linda lock the back door. Go, she said without looking up. I didn't move. You didn't have to say that about your son. It's the truth, she replied, finally meeting my eyes. And you need to remember it. A car passed slowly on the street. She tensed, glancing at it a little too quickly. I followed her gaze. The driver's face was shadowed, but I caught the way he slowed to look at her, or maybe at us. Who was that? I asked. No one, she said too fast. Then she started walking toward her own car. I caught up. You're lying. David, she sighed, fumbling with her keys. That was my ex. The air seemed to shrink between us. Does he? No. He doesn't know. And he can't. Her voice dropped lower, urgent. He's the type who would make it ugly, just to make me pay. Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. This wasn't just about an age gap anymore. There were histories here, sharp edges I couldn't see yet. She got the door open, but before she could step inside, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. What is it? My son, she said, showing me the screen. Where are you? Need to talk. The message wasn't unusual, but the look on her face was. She wasn't ready for whatever that talk would be. You should go, she said again. I nodded this time, though my feet still wouldn't move. Will you call me? She hesitated, then stepped closer instead of answering. We were suddenly standing under the same narrow strip of awning, the scent of rain still clinging to her hair. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Then why are you still here? I asked. She didn't answer. Her hand came up, not quite to touch my face, but close enough that I could feel the heat of her palm. For one suspended moment, the world outside blurred and all I could hear was her breath and the faint hum of the streetlight overhead. And then, a voice from across the street, Mom. We broke apart instantly. A young man, about my age, stood under the glow of the corner shop sign, a takeaway bag in his hand. He was looking right at her. Linda's voice was steady when she called back, Hey. Just, locking up. He nodded, but his eyes slid to me, lingering a beat too long. Then he walked away without another word. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there, rain dripping off the awning, knowing something had shifted, and that we were already too deep to pretend otherwise. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. No calls. No texts. Just the silence of someone trying to put distance where there shouldn't be any. By the 3rd night, I gave in. The shop lights were off, but her car was parked out back. I knocked softly on the glass door until I saw her silhouette in the dim interior. She didn't open it at first. Just stood there, arms folded, like she was deciding whether to let me in or send me away for good. Then, slowly, the lock clicked. "You can't keep showing up here," she said. "Then tell me to stop." Her jaw tightened. She turned away, heading behind the counter, pretending to sort receipts. "You saw my son the other night." "I did. He asked about you." "What did you say?" "That you were just some kid who liked my coffee." That hit harder than I expected. "Is that what I am to you?" Her hand stilled on the receipts, but she didn't look up. She exhaled sharply. "You're making this harder than it already is." I came around the counter, closing the gap between us. "Harder for who?" "For both of us," she said, finally meeting my eyes. And there it was again, that flicker of something raw, something she was desperate to smother. Before I could speak, she added, "My ex saw us the other night." My stomach dropped. "You didn't tell me." "Because it doesn't matter. He's the kind of man who turns whispers into weapons. If he thinks there's something between us, there is something between us," I cut in. She stared at me, eyes searching mine, as if waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. "You don't understand," she said, stepping back. "He could tell my son. He could drag my name through the mud. And you just move on with your life while I pick up the pieces. Is that what you think of me?" My voice rose, sharper than I intended. "That I'd just walk away?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. And then the air shifted, anger giving way to something else entirely. She reached for the counter like she needed to steady herself. My hand brushed hers. This time, she didn't pull away. "You drive me insane," she whispered. "Then stop fighting it." The words hung there, heavy and electric. Her breathing changed, quick, shallow, as if she were standing on the edge of a cliff, trying to decide whether to jump. I took a step closer. She didn't move. "Linda," the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway and back. Someone was coming. Her eyes went wide. The footsteps grew louder, and before I could move, the back door swung open. It wasn't a customer. It was her son. "Mom," he said, frowning at the sight of me. "Why's he here?" Linda froze. Her hand slipped from mine so quickly it felt like a door slamming shut. He just came by for coffee," she said, too fast, too polished. "At midnight?" His gaze flicked between us, reading more than either of us wanted him to. "Is this why you've been so distracted?" "Daniel," she began, but he cut her off. "You're older than Dad. And you're here, with him?" The words landed like a slap. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I kept still, waiting for her to speak. "Daniel, go home," she said, voice firm. "No. You're going to tell me the truth." "Are you?" He broke off, shaking his head in disbelief. "God, Mom." Linda stepped forward, but he backed away, grabbing his phone from his pocket. "I think Dad should know about this," he muttered. That's when I moved. "Hey," but before I could reach him, Linda's voice cut through the room. "Daniel, Please. Don't do this. Her son's eyes narrowed. Why? Because it's not true? Or because it is? The silence that followed was enough of an answer. He turned toward the door. Dad's gonna love this. Daniel. Her voice cracked, a rare break in her composure. He stopped at the threshold, looked back at her, and said, "You always told me not to make the same mistakes you did. Guess you didn't take your own advice." Then he left, the door slamming so hard the glass rattled. I stood there, still, as the weight of what had just happened settled in the air. "Linda," I started, but she wouldn't look at me. She pressed both hands to her face, drawing in a shaky breath. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said, her voice muffled. "Once it's out, I can't take it back. And if he tells his father, then we deal with it," I said, stepping closer. She shook her head. "You don't get it. This isn't just about you and me. This is my life. My reputation. My son. And what am I?" I asked quietly. That made her look at me, finally. Her eyes were wet, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked completely unguarded. "You're the one thing I can't seem to let go of," she said. I wanted to pull her into my arms. To tell her none of it mattered. But before I could, her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with a name I didn't need to read twice. Her ex-husband. Calling. The phone kept ringing. Linda stared at the screen like it might burn her if she touched it. On the third ring, she answered. "What do you want, Mark?" Her voice was flat, almost cold. I couldn't hear his exact words, but the tone was sharp, accusing. Her knuckles whitened around the phone. "No," she said after a moment. "You don't get to tell me how to live my life anymore." A pause. His voice rose. She flinched, but didn't back down. "Daniel's old enough to make his own decisions. And if he's upset, that's between him and me." Her eyes flicked to mine as she listened. Whatever Mark said next made her jaw clench. "You think you can shame me?" she snapped. "I've already survived worse." Then she ended the call, setting the phone down like it weighed 100 pounds. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Finally, I said, "You didn't have to defend me." Her laugh was short, bitter. "I wasn't defending you. I was defending us." I stepped closer, searching her face. "So there is an us?" She hesitated, just long enough for me to feel the pull of gravity between us. "There's been an us since the night you stayed after closing," she admitted. The truth hit me harder than I expected. And before I could think of anything to say, she added, "But that doesn't mean it's the right thing." "Linda, you're young," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "You don't see how this will follow you. How people will use it against you. Against me." "I see enough to know I don't care," I said. "That's because you haven't lost anything yet." The rain outside had picked up again, pattering against the windows, filling the silence between us. I took another step, close enough now to see the faint tremor in her hands. "Then tell me to leave. Tell me you don't want me, and I will." Her eyes locked on mine, and I knew, she couldn't say it. Instead, she reached for me. Not fast, not dramatic. Just a slow, deliberate touch, her fingers curling into the sleeve of my jacket like she needed something to hold on to. "I'm so tired of being afraid," she whispered. I covered her hand with mine. "Then stop." For a heartbeat, it felt like the whole world had narrowed to that moment, her breath, my hand, the quiet war in her eyes. She leaned in, just enough for me to feel the warmth of her, but not enough to close the distance. And then she pulled back, her expression unreadable. Lock the door behind you when you leave, she said. And she was gone, disappearing into the back room, leaving me standing there, soaked in the knowledge that this wasn't over, but we were both too far in to walk away. It had been a week since that night. 7 days of silence. No calls. No texts. Just the steady hum of life moving forward, except it didn't feel like moving forward at all. I told myself to leave her alone. That maybe this was how it was meant to end, not with some dramatic fight, but with space neither of us knew how to cross. Then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, I found myself outside the coffee shop again. The lights were on. She was there, behind the counter, rearranging cups like she always did when she was lost in thought. When she saw me, her hands stilled. For a moment, I thought she might tell me to leave. Instead, she said quietly, "You're wet. Sit down." I did. She brought me coffee without asking, the steam curling between us like a fragile bridge. "I talked to Daniel," she said after a moment. My stomach tightened. "And? He's not happy. But he's not telling his father anything." "Not yet." She stared into her cup. "He says it's my life, even if he doesn't understand it." I let that sink in. "And what about your ex?" Her lips curved into something almost like a smile. "He'll always try to rattle me. But he doesn't get to decide what I do anymore." There was a long pause before I asked, "So what now?" Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't look guarded. "Now, we see if this is worth the risk." I reached across the table, my hand covering hers. She didn't pull away this time. The rain outside softened, tapping lightly against the window, like it was listening in. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. She shook her head with a small, disbelieving laugh. "You're stubborn. And you like that," I replied. Her smile deepened, small, real, and more precious for it. "We didn't make promises. We didn't need to." There were still obstacles ahead, her son's trust, the shadows of her past, the whispers we'd have to face. But in that quiet corner of the shop, none of it mattered more than the fact that we were both still here. When I finally left, the air felt different. Lighter. Like something had shifted, not into perfection, but into possibility. And maybe that's all love really is, not the absence of risk, but the choice to step toward it anyway.